we have to realize that there are some things that people choose not to forgive or forget, right? That's not necessarily the healthiest because then we're holding on to a lot of anger and resentment or whatever the story is, and that's their choice. So if we're clear on who and what we want to forgive, again, it doesn't mean we forget. It also does not mean that I want you in my life, like full time, like forgive, forget, come on in, like let's do this. Like, okay, no. I will forgive so that I can make peace with myself.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Make Dreams Happen. Happy Saturday and happy weekend. I hope that everybody has a really good week. So I'm super happy today because I had a but I'm gonna say very special um, guest in my podcast today. So his name is Patrick, James Patrick. He's a life coach. He's also a mentor, and I'm super grateful with him because he gave me the opportunity to be in one of his classes for SIWA, and also I'm gonna be taking classes. I'm gonna start taking classes and SIWA. I'm super excited, and this is for him because if he wouldn't invite me to take these classes, I wouldn't have like that motivation to start this journey in SIWA. So, and I'm super happy to have him here in my podcast. We're gonna be talking about a subject that sometimes is hard for everybody, and I will say I'm guilty of that. Is letting go. So, but let's start this podcast and bring him to the screen to James Patrick. Hello, James.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's Saturday morning. It's my favorite time of day. The weather's cooling off, so I'm happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you a morning person?
I'm a little bit of both. I love my early mornings for my routines to kind of set the tone for the day. And then I find myself most creative in the evenings. So it's a little bit of a different energy. So some people are either a night owl or they're a morning person. And I am both, but I just have a different energy in each space. So I love it. I love it. Balance,
That's
balance, balance.
awesome. Yes, we always has to have a balance. But tell us about more about you. Like, tell just introduce yourself to my audience and people that still doesn't know James Patrick. What do you do?
Gotcha.
And
So, yes, so my name is James Patrick. I have multiple different hats that I wear. For the most part, I am the Director of Business Development and Community Outreach for the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. As you had mentioned in your intro, I do teach one of the main business development classes, and I am also the director for the life and health and wellness coaching programs. SWIHA is essentially the space that kicked off my passion and my purpose for being a coach and being a support to others. And if I were to share, my mission and my obsession, it's really all about, time management and organization. So, I support individuals who struggle with time management and organization to create structures, disciplines, routines, so they can be more productive in their personal and professional lives. I do have my own business outside of Sweetheart as personal trainer, motivational speaker, lots of motivational presentations. And in January, which if you're around in January, we're doing our Firewalk on the last Saturday of the month. So that's always a big event for me to kick off the new year. So a new coaching weekend and a Firewalk. So
yeah, I will. I'm down to do that.
it's a
uh,
good time.
yeah, I bet. And you're original from New York, or you just from here, Arizona?
Yep, born and raised in New York. My whole family's back east, so I'm the only one here. And a lot of times people will ask, why I came to Arizona. And honestly, I love the weather here. I'll take the heat over the cold any day. And cost of living, even though it's going up, it's still cheaper here than it is in New York. And I see my family more now than I did when I lived there. So
Oh wow.
that's I love it here. I genuinely love it here.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that intro. I'm super excited to start this podcast with you and talk about this topic that is about letting go. Because how I say before, by intro, there's a lot of people that have problem to let it go, and I'm guilty of that. So, and it's something that I've been working on that. And just like tell me how why you think that people is like we have a lot of problem, or it's hard for people to let go or letting go.
So, one thing that I often invite people to consider is I'm not necessarily a fan of the term letting go per se, only because letting go itself implies that I'm letting something go and it's gone, like
Mm.
it's gone. And that's not really true for a lot of people, especially for those that have been through certain life experiences, certain traumas. We all have a story, and I always tell people, is like everything that we've been through, every choice that we've made, every experience that we've had is a part of us on a cellular level. And so it's not really about letting it go, it's about really kind of filtering through the story of what is it that I'm willing to release that no longer serves my highest good, because what happened happened, can't change that. And yet, when we tell the story, do we tell the story from a place of imprisonment, or do we tell the story from a place of empowerment? And the difference is those that are unwilling to let go or release are usually defined by their story. And those are the individuals that may have had a life experience or a trauma or something happen, and they're stuck in it, right? So they're present, like we're in the present moment right now, and yet they are not fully present because there's a part of them that is still living in what has happened, versus somebody that comes from a space of empowerment. It is, I've been through some things, I've got a story, and I was able to filter through the pieces because there is a blessing in everything, a blessing and a lesson. And our mission is, when life happens, to be able to take out the pieces. What was I meant to get from this experience? So I can release the negative, release what doesn't serve me, and retain the blessing, the good, because everything that happens to us, no matter how good, bad, awful, indifferent it might be, is always for our highest good. Now, I'm not going to say that we're human living this human experience. I'm not going to say that we don't have our moments, because when things happen, it's not going to feel the greatest, it's not always going to look the greatest. We have to have our moment, we have to process and be with it. And then it becomes about, how do we feel through it before we work through it in order to release what doesn't serve us, so that we can keep moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what are your thoughts? Now, I know you said that you yourself have trouble letting go. What's your awareness?
Just yeah, I had trouble because I've been through a lot of like stuff in my life, but I feel that I'm still carrying them. Like I'm still something, I get upset, and I get in my head thinking about those things, or I have problem like to forget um people, or I have problem to not forget, no for to forget. I have problem to like let that in the past. It's just and just keep going.
Mm. So it's kind of going into that whole, when we say, so do you find yourself able, so you can forgive but not forget? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
So okay. And so part of it is twofold. having a conscious conversation with yourself of and being truthful. Have I really forgiven? Right? Have I really forgiven? Because if there is still a charge, if there is still an emotional attachment, if there's still a response, that's the first thing we have to look into is have I truly forgiven who or what has happened before? If you have and you're truthful with yourself, then it becomes not about forgetting, because, like I said before, it happened. It is a part of you. So it's a matter of then turning it into what was the blessing. So if you find yourself still in that space where it takes up a lot of space in your mind and in your thought process and with your feelings and with your emotions, having the conversation with yourself of what was I meant to get from that experience? How am I, for lack of a better term, how am I better because of what happened? So that's something that easier said than done. And yet, how am I better for what happened? Because you're here, right? You're here in this moment right now, which means you have made it through everything that challenged you or was an obstacle or was that life experience that could have held you back. And yet here you still are. And like I said before, it's yes, you are here. And yet, what do you feel you need to release in order to feel as if you are fully present in this moment without any other distraction, worry, concern, because the past is the past. And so the last part of this is when we realize that there are things that we can change and there are things that we can't. And the only things we can change are the things we choose to change about ourselves. If we have resentment or emotion or anger or regret, whatever it is towards other individuals, sometimes it's accepting I'm not going to change anybody else because that's not my responsibility. And it is, as Casey Miller, so our chief spiritual officer at SWIHA, will often say, we don't have to like it, we don't have to agree with it, yet we do have to accept it or accept the who, and sometimes say, I love you and blessings from afar. Blessings from afar. Like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And yet, you are responsible for who and what you allow into your life. And you are responsible for who and what you release or choose boundaries to keep outside of your life because it doesn't add value. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, how does that resonate with you? What are your thoughts on that?
It resonate with me is something that how to say I've been working, but at the same time, when you're saying that, especially with family, when you say I love you, but I'm gonna keep you from far.
Mhm.
Um, how you like is between the family you're having like problem, you're being like having difficult time with your problem, and some relative or somebody that is part of your family did something to you. How do you forgive that family, and how you get back to that harmonious, is that the right way to say, relationship?
Sometimes, and here's the thing, sometimes we have to be willing to accept that the relationship we desire may not necessarily be the relationship that we get. And so, do I have permission to share an example?
Yes, or
Okay.
yeah.
So, speaking to family, right? We all have our family stories. We all have the ones that we are close to. We all have the ones that we are a little bit further apart from. Like I said, they're family. We gotta love them, but doesn't mean we gotta like them sometimes. And so, for example, so I love, love, love my father, right? He is a good man. He works very hard and always has for his children. There's a lot of past family trauma on his side of the family that has trickled down through the generations, right? And there are a lot of things that I notice over the years. Like, he is a very good person, but he's also a very angry person. And I have had to accept on multiple occasions that as much as I would love to have a closer, better, more fully expressed relationship with my father, there are some things that are never going to change because it's who he is. And as much as I want that, I have to be willing to forgive the past and accept him for who he is, realizing I'm not going to change him. All I can do is establish boundaries and determine what is my relationship going to look like today, knowing it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be my ideal, and yet I love him from afar, and I choose how much I allow his energy and his presence to influence my life. Because how many times, and maybe you can relate, like, I will get on the phone with him, and I know it's not always going to be a positive conversation. I know there's going to be negativity. I know there's going to be, like, it's always going to be a conversation that takes a little bit more away from me than adds to my life. And so I have to mentally prepare myself sometimes. I do need to stay in touch. I do. And yet, I know the conversations. I need to have a recharge after those conversations sometimes. And it's okay because it's still connection. And yet, the other side of this is about the family we choose. So, what I choose to focus on is the family that I've created, like here in Arizona, right? I'm the only one here. I
Same.
choose to focus on the family that I've created through my friends that have become like family, because family is not just blood. And I choose to focus on the good that I have in my life because I've created a lot of good. I'm grateful for a lot of things that I do have. And is it perfect? No. Is it exactly what I've always wanted it to be? No. And that's okay. So it's being able to, in some ways, forgive yourself and then create some boundaries around these people are in my life, family, right? Love them, don't have to like them all the time. And having conversations that are within your boundaries so that I can still stay protected. And then when that's done, I move over and I focus on the good that's in my life and the family and the friends that do fulfill the things that I want the most when it comes to connection, when it comes to family, when it comes to the things that bring and add value to my life. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's amazing. And it's good that you said that because like 2 weeks ago I went to Miami to for a wedding, and my whole family it was there. So and that brings something that I always been carrying against my father. So we were all together over there, and I was thinking that I was already like passed through that. But then when we were all together in a tables, something like triggered that trauma from that I had, or that thing that I had against my father, and that was when I was like, oh my god, I haven't totally passed through that, and I haven't forgiven my father for that. So and it was kind of hard because we had kind of like a, I don't know how to say it, like a argue, and that's when the Jose that I don't like came out. It's for the reason that I say I have. Now I know that I have problem to let it go and leave that, leave those things in the past, or like already passed and now I move on. So
Well, have you had a conversation with him about like
no like official conversation like talking about that, but I've been like, that's another thing. Do you, because sometimes I feel that people, they will say, "Oh, we already passed." We become like passive aggressive sometimes, and I think I have those kind of moment with my father. I say, "Oh yes, for that I didn't do this, or for you I didn't do this, or for you this has happened to me." But I never like have like a face to face conversation to let them know, "Hey, this happened in my life, and I have this because for you, or because this happened for you." I never had that conversation.
well, this is the beautiful part about what I love about coaching. So one of two things can happen. And again, it's a two-way street. So it would be one side of this would be having an invitation of would he be willing to have a conversation with you about that? Or, like you said, sometimes people are passive aggressive where I may want to talk about something and the other individual is like, no, we're past that. We're done with that. I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm not going to get the conversation that I want. However, it doesn't mean that you don't get to have the conversation. So sometimes there's this tool that we do in coaching that is kind of like role play, where say we're sitting face to face right now. There's two options. Either I can have you close your eyes and be in a space where you're going to imagine as if I'm your father and you get to say all the things that you want to say, knowing that I'm just going to receive it, right? You get to let it out, you get to speak it, you get to put it out. And if that's difficult, then we just put an empty chair in front of you. And you literally imagine that your father is sitting in that chair. And what would you say? What do you need to release? What do you need to get out so that you can find some peace within yourself? Because even if you're not going to get the response or have the conversation that you want with the actual individual, with your father, you can still have the conversation to release anything that you're still holding on to. Because when you said you went for your visit, right, there was that trigger, there was that activator that you notice like things, which means your body is holding on to things. Your body is holding on to a story that it does not want to hold on to anymore. So we have to find an outlet. And then, so once we, in coaching, once we have those conversations and we let it out, it's like, okay, we have, and this is again, everybody's different. This is where we would check in to see, okay, how does it feel to speak that? How does it feel to let that out? And sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's anger, sometimes, like I said, there's a lot of different emotions that happen, and yet it's still a release. And so that would be an invitation, because then in coaching, what we do is we back up that release with positive habits. And I know that you go to the gym and you've been exercising more and doing things. So with every release, you're creating space. And with that space, you fill it with the good, with exercise, with meditation, with doing a podcast episode, the things that bring you joy, right? So that you don't have emptiness, but you clear out the clutter and then you fill it with the good, if that works.
Yeah, I thought I was doing great, honestly, because I talked with my father to the phone and we had like a really good conversation now. But when I saw him in person, it was another story. That's when I realized that, oh my god, I haven't passed this through it, so I'm still, there's still, how you say, it's still in my body. My body still want to release it.
Yeah. And so in that awareness, so you said you had a conversation over the phone and in person, like you realized that there was still stuff there. do you feel that even though there was still stuff still there, would that have been even worse if you had not already had some kind of conversation with him over the phone? Like, was there some sense of release a little bit from at least having that conversation over the phone? So, say maybe before you went on the phone, like you're at a level 10, like you've had it, you're up to here. And so you have the conversation over the phone, and it doesn't drop it all the way down. It goes from maybe a 10 to maybe a 7, right? And so then you go and you see him in person, and you realize that you might still be at a 7, yet without that phone conversation. If you had just went to go see him in person without anything else, you would be going in with a 10, right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
The phone call create at least a little space so that you could at least be present when you saw him in person and not be the Josephs that you don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and that's something that I know the only one that struggle with that. There's a lot of people that also struggle with that saying. And we were talking about forgiveness and how forgive affect us like as a person and our health and our mind too. How can we like take the first step to forgive, and how, because it's hard to forgive, how can we like do with coaching or like therapy start to forgiving people?
Well, the thing is, it's being clear on who exactly are you looking to forgive. And number two, be very, very clear on what exactly you feel you want to forgive. And do you want to forgive is the question, right? Because we have to realize that there are some things that people choose not to forgive or forget, right? That's not necessarily the healthiest, because then we're holding on to a lot of anger and resentment or whatever the story is, and that's their choice. So if we're clear on who and what we want to forgive, again, it doesn't mean we forget. It doesn't mean, it also does not mean that I want you in my life like full time, like forgive, forget, and come on in, like let's do that. Like, okay, no, 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 no. I will forgive so that I can make peace with myself. I will not forget because it's a part of my story. And yet, my boundary is that I will be cordial, I will be in a space, but it does not mean that I need to be close to you. So a lot of times people feel that forgiveness wipes the slate clean and come on in and be a part of my life again. Not always. So in order to really take those first steps, you have to determine the who, you have to get clear on what exactly you want to forgive. And once you've forgiven it, you have to establish what is the relationship or the connection you will allow with that person or persons in your life. So there are a few things that we do need to take into consideration. And so it really is about rewriting the story or changing the narrative so that, kind of like the conversation we were talking about before, you may forgive somebody for something, realizing that they may not think they did anything wrong.
Yes.
Sometimes just like, well, thank you, but I don't think I need to be forgiven. Okay. But there's something about you that needs to release what doesn't serve you. So realizing sometimes forgiveness may be a one sided street because it's about you being able to move forward and finding that grounding. And like I said before, that peace so that you can move forward. Right.
Yeah. So that's nice that you said that we have to be aware with who is the person that we're gonna forget, and if we want to forgive too. So I was the other day I was watching this video of the Dr. Wayne Dryer, and he was saying that when we forget, we let go the our ego, because sometimes when we don't forget, it's because it's our ego telling us, oh, we are better, oh, that person offended me, so I never gonna forget it. Do you think also that the ego has to be with when we to the person that we want to forget, or the reason that we want to forget or not?
Yeah, the ego is definitely involved because when something happens or we feel something happens to us, we are responsible for how we receive what happens, and only we are responsible for how we process what happens. And so the ego is involved because, yes, oh, I got my feelings hurt. It may or may not have been the intention of the other individual, yet how we received it and how we processed it was our choice. So they're maybe not thinking anything of it, right? They're sleeping well at night, they're doing just fine. Meanwhile, you're angry and you're losing sleep, and you're just, that's our choice, right? That is our responsibility. And so if we are willing to release the ego and willing to release attachment to the story and to, we still, like I said before, it all comes back to the same thing. We have to consciously choose, what value am I giving this person? What value am I giving this story? What power am I giving to this? Realizing that if I stay in this space, I'm sacrificing myself, right? I am losing sleep. I am losing my energy. I am giving my power away to someone or something that, quite honestly, could care less. Like, they're fine. I'm the one going crazy. So it's all on us. So we have to choose the value that we give it. I think it was Deepak Chopra was the one that said that. We cannot control what happens to us. We can control the value that we give it. And the value that we give it determines if we stay where we are or if we release, forgive, and move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, awesome. Thank you, Jens, for that lesson, and thank you for kind of like a therapy too for me.
We're all a reflection of each other. And sometimes, the things that we share with each other are things that we both need to hear.
Yes, because I'm been working. How to say before? I've been working with that, and with that relation with my father, and also I'm trying to help my mom and that and with that too, because she's kind of like I don't have any problem with my mom, but she's having that like resentment against her sisters, and something is kind of like that. I feel that she's always feeling sick. It's funny. I gonna give you this. I'm gonna tell you this. She always go to the doctor, and she has all her blood tests, and everything is good, everything. But she's always feeling sick. She's always feeling like headache, blood pressure. But she's always thinking with about her sister, about uh, everything that happened with her sister. Because when my grandma passed, there was a huge fight between the sister, and she's been carrying with that. And the other day, I told her, "You need to forgive your sister, or you have to forgive yourself to start feeling better." Because I think it's weird that you go to the doctor and the doctor you don't have anything, but you always feeling sick. And I think it's for the resentment, and because you haven't forgive your sister and you haven't forgive yourself, that you always feeling like sick, and that thing in your head is always like keeping you like that you're not feeling well.
It's stress is what it is. And with your mother, it's the same thing. It's, she's taking on the energy, the responsibility. She's taking on all of this stuff from her sisters that is not hers to take on, right? And I know it could be also culturally and generationally, like this is what some people do. And so we know that even though, like you said, you go to the doctor, she gets the blood work, everything looks good, yet she's always sick. It's because we know that stress, if we don't do things to process the stress, turns into chronic stress because we're holding on to things for way too long. And if we hold on to it for too long, chronic stress turns into illness and disease in the body. And that's how it shows up. So, like you said, it may not be the physical when I go to the doctor and get my blood work, everything looks fine. It is all the crap mentally, emotionally, spiritually that I'm holding on to that's not mine to hold on to. The body, when it turns into illness and disease, that's the body's way of saying, okay, you need to figure this out, like, because this is not yours to hold on to. And in coaching, that's another boundary that we work with, is that especially when it comes to friends and family and those that are close to us, and even with our clients, my boundary is what's yours is yours, what's mine is mine. And that is the boundary. Like, I'm not going to take on anything of yours that is not mine to own. And you're not going to take anything of mine that is not yours to own. So I think that would be, or I feel I should say, that may be a piece of work for, as you're sharing with your mom, is where can she find peace for herself? And again, blessings and I love you from afar. Who are the sisters that can be a part of my life, and who are the ones that they're in my life but don't need to be a big part of my life, because it takes away more than it adds. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, James, for that. And I had a question for you. So, what would you say to this? Because you said that you're not a big fan of the word letting go or let it go. How do you call that? And what will be your advice for those person like me or my mom that are having problem to let it go or forgive?
So it is, again, coming back to being very clear on what the story is. What is the story that I'm telling myself? And making sure that when you review the story in your head, is it true? Like, is there anything that I'm making up that is not true? And what parts of the story are true? Once I have the story, it is about not letting go. It's about having the conversation. What must I, or what am I willing to release that does not serve me? So that if you're carrying the weight of this story, by releasing what doesn't serve you, you're not getting rid of the story. You're unpacking the pieces that you don't need to hold on to anymore. So that the story then is this is what you're holding, not this. You're holding this. It's still a part of you, but it's not as heavy as it once was, because you don't need to take ownership of everything, knowing that if we keep holding this, like I just said before, this will eventually turn inward and will turn into illness or disease. So it's being very, very mindful of just not letting go. What am I willing to release? Because when you do that, you realize you have the power. I get to choose what I'm ready to release, and I get to choose the things that I'm aware of, maybe not ready to release just yet it's always in my control. And I think that's what's very empowering for people. And why, when you say letting go, whenever you receive that from somebody, like, oh, just let it go, a lot of people don't like that. Like, it's like,
Yes.
excuse me, just let it go. Well, you know what? Sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes, and it's a very emotional thing versus, okay, I hear you. And what are you willing to release from that story? Because then it empowers you. It gives you the control and you the choice of what serves and what doesn't serve.
I like it that way
Yeah.
because really it's what is not working for you from the story. I like it.
Yep.
Awesome. I learned that, so I won't say that. Let it go, because it's true. There's people that they say I don't want to let it go. Let me be. I
And
like it.
that's okay. Just let him be. It doesn't mean it'll never happen. Yet I can't force somebody to, just let it go. That's not my responsibility. Like they get to choose when they're ready. Okay.
Awesome. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So, and before we end the episode, I always ask like couple random questions to my guests. So, the first question is, when was the last time that you did something for the first time?
The last time I did something for the first time, hmm, let me see. So that's a good question. Maybe I need to have a first time for something. Last time I did something for the first time. So I'm learning to take more time for myself, right? I tend to be a very social person. I'm very actively involved in the community. I'm always around people and I'm always doing, doing, doing. So I will say that 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I flew up to Seattle to take care of some work stuff and to visit with some friends that were up there. It was just me. So it was nice to honor myself to just get that plane ticket, go out of town, do something for me because I'm such a doer, caretaker, healer that I'm constantly doing for others. So it was able to create space where I got time for myself away from Phoenix, away from everybody that I knew. And I got to choose the time that I got to spend with those that I was visiting. So I think that's something that I need to do more of because I noticed when I came back, I had a lot more energy than I've had in a while. And I think it's because I don't always hold the boundary of taking time to fill my tank. Yeah.
Awesome. I like
Yeah.
that. Awesome. And the next question is, as you were president of the states for one day, just one day, and they say you have to create a law that is gonna last forever. What will be the law?
So, speaking to everything that we learn at SWIHA, I do firmly believe in creating more tolerance and acceptance of all walks of life. And as I said before in the episode, you don't have to like or agree with, people's backgrounds or lifestyles or whatever they're doing or whoever they are. You don't have to like it or agree with it, but we do have to accept each other. Like, this is where we are in this day and age. It's 2024, almost 2025.
Almost.
And it's time to accept, like we were talking about before, you're not going to change everybody. The only person you're responsible for changing is you. And I do believe that we need more tolerance and more acceptance of look at how diverse we've become, right? Look at how many different types of individuals, backgrounds, ethnicities, sexual orientations. Like lately, we have gotten so diverse. And I think that's what makes this life so beautiful is that we can learn from each other if we're willing to accept one another. And so, even if we agree to disagree, I still see you. I still accept you as a whole person, and that you add something to this space that we're in. So, that would be something that I would put into place. Yeah.
I like it. I like that. All right. And the next question is, what would you say to the James Patrick of the future?
I would continue with my mantra of get out of your own way. Right? I do firmly believe that a lot of us are driven by a lot of goals, and we're motivated by the things that we want. And a lot of times when we cut down to the root of everything, the only limitation is ourselves and the story that we tell ourselves. So continue to get out of my own way, knowing that as we grow and evolve and expand, things get a little scarier. Things get a little more exciting. Things really expand. And it's being willing to live in the unknown and just kind of go with it and say, you know what? Let's see what there is to learn today. What is my blessing for today? So, yeah.
Awesome. I like that. And my last question is, which book is the one that changed your life after you read it? And if you will recommend to anybody to read it?
Oh God, this was years and years and years ago. So Tony Robbins, who I love, right? Motivational speaker, presenter, fire guy, has been around forever. But the very first book that I read was The Awakening the Giant Within. And it was one of the very first books that I was exposed to. Definitely recommend it, only because after I read the book, and this was back in the day when cassette tapes were a thing, a binder of like 12 cassette tapes to listen to. And then I got a set of CDs to go with it. And so The Awakening the Giant Within was really life changing in that respect, because it's a big part of who I'm choosing to create myself to be today, and to be able to tap into that fire and to be the fullest, biggest expression of myself, realizing that I have so much more to do and I have so much more to give. And the only way it happens if I'm willing to tap into that giant. I'm willing to tap into that light, that greatness within, and take ownership of it, saying, you know what? It's my turn, and do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. I need to read that book. I haven't read that. Yeah, I would say my book that I will say is The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein.
Ah, Gabby, yes.
Yes, that was when because I remember when I was in high school, I read The Secret.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but at that moment I thought that this is a woo woo book, so I was like, but
At the
then,
time.
hmm?
At the
Yes,
time.
yes, and then I read this book came in the way that this book came to me. The Universe Has Your Back was weird. I was passing for a hard moment, and when I read it, it was kind of like a aha moment. My mind started like expanding and believing more in myself and the universe and God, and that was awesome. I always recommend that book to everybody. The Universe Has Your Back.
Yeah, there's so many great. I mean, you've got the Gabby Bernstein, Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer,
Yeah,
Brene,
I love.
right? There's all these people, and they all share a similar message, but in their own way. And yet, it's nice to read these messages because it resonates. Like it's like yes, 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 and then we get to do it.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, James, for your time. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful with you. And you know that I respect you and I admire you for everything that you do. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for giving me the opportunity to be in your class and now to start being an official SIWA student. I'm super excited for that, honestly. And I'm super
Anyone
excited.
corner.
Yes, and I'm super excited to become part of this huge community too, and super happy. So, Patrick, but how can we support you or my audience or the people that are watching you?
Honestly, like I said, if you're interested, like you have mentioned, Sweeha, you can all go to the website www.swiha.edu to find out more about how you can grow as an individual. And
I'm
then,
gonna put it over there.
what's that?
I'm gonna put the website over there.
Yeah. And so, as far as I go, again, I do my own stuff outside of here. So you can always find me on social media, and I can send you all my information
Yeah, please.
and whatnot, so you can put it out there. But just keep supporting the good that is in this world. It takes more than one individual. And so if we all start doing our part and create value in the lives of others, you're only going to increase the value that you're going to get for yourself. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick, again. And thank you, you guys, for watching this episode. Thank you for the support too. And just remember, just subscribe to my channel, give me a like, and always my intention with this podcast is always like give this message that you can do anything that you want. You can make dreams happen. It doesn't matter where you come from or who you are. You can do anything that you want. Thank you so much, Patrick, again, and we will see you soon. And we're gonna see you in Siwa very soon too. And thank you, and see you next time, guy.
So grateful, yeah. Thank you for the laughter, thank you for the tears, thank you for the moments